And Ferguson, despite top 8ing last weekend, switched it up this week. Going Bant.
Yeah, switching up his deck after that. You see Tenjum 7th currently in the Season 1 standings. I have to think that after this weekend, Andy Ferguson is going to be ranked as well.
Oh, certainly.
As we are underway, both players are going to trade some fetch lands to start the game. Evolving Wilds for Tenjum, a Flooded Strand for Ferguson. Now, Andy's deck is a bit of a throwback in that it's playing the Death Mist Raptor Den Protector package, which we haven't really seen for a while.
No, this deck and Jim Davis, two of very few players that are still incorporating this package. It was very good for Andy earlier, and the big thing that Death Mist Raptor does for your deck, not just that value blend, but just the fact that you always want to find 2-3 mana creatures on your collected company. Gets the most power on the table, gets the most potential value.
So it'll be Tenjum out of the gates first, cracking a Wooded Foothills here. Remember, this is actually, their Jeskai Black build is very aggressive. Heavy amounts of burn, does play copies of Seeker of the Way and Mantis Rider both in 4-ofs, and it's going to be Seeker of the Way on turn 2.
What they're really looking to do is go Seeker of the Way into Crackling Doom on whatever creature you play, beat down, and then just Jeskai Charm you out of the game.
Den Protector, the turn 2 play from Andy Ferguson, just playing it face up as a 2-1. He would like this to be able to trade with Seeker, though. If Andrew just leaves up mana and attacks into the Den Protector, it's going to be a tough call for Andy.
The thing is, almost every spell that Tenjum could cast this turn just kills the Den Protector anyway. The only thing that's really problematic is if Tenjum just plays an island or an untapped blue source, attacks, and then just casts Jeskai Charm.
At Andy for 4 damage.
Correct.
So he does play a Flooded Strand and attacks, so that's the scenario you talked about. We're going to see if Andy's willing to call. If you're going to play Den Protector face up, yeah, he's going to call. He'll make the block, and Andrew bins the Seeker of the Way.
Yeah. Suggests strongly to me that Tenjum does not have a Jeskai Charm in his hand, though this is far from the stages in the game where that information is very helpful.
Well, that's a great block then by Andy.
Yeah, sniffs it out, says, do you have it? If you had a removal spell, you probably should just main phased it here.
It's going to go get Prairie Stream. We'll see if Tenjum has a follow-up 3-drop. Seems unlikely.
Could be a Jace. This is the first turn that he's had blue mana.
I think that's exactly it. Tapping 2 for Jace Vryn's Prodigy. I'll pass back to Andy. Both these decks, different takes on Jace decks.
And here's where we see why we have face-up Den Protectors. No third land for Ferguson.
Yeah, he's going to be stuck on 2. He'll play another face-up Den Protector. The first one he managed to get value out of by trading it for Seeker, but this is a problematic situation because it's not a Seeker, it's not just damage, it's card advantage he's going to get buried in, and that's much harder to come back from.
Absolutely. And Jace is flipping, so Tenjum is up a Planeswalker.
Yeah, Planeswalker and 2 lands. He discarded Reflector Mage to flip that Jace.
Yeah, he don't really want a Reflector Mage Den Protector.
Not right now. I mean, interestingly enough, if you Reflector Mage a face-up Den Protector, your opponent can face down at the next turn.
Yes.
Jace will plus up to 6. It'll shrink down the Den Protector. Now, this is something I know Jeskai Black doesn't normally do, especially not Tenjum's build, but if Andy's continued to be stuck on lands, how do you feel about trying to build up to a Jace emblem?
Seems like a solid line. You control the only thing that Ferguson has going for him. You shrink that Den Protector to 0 power, and you just build towards the emblem.
Yeah, it's not like Andy has any removal or burn to take down the Jace. The only non-creature spells in his main deck are Collected Company, Jermoka's Command, and Ojutai's Command. Particularly not good at playing against Planeswalkers.
Yeah, and there's also just the fact that Tenjum has nothing worth flashing back. And not enough mana to really cast most of his spells twice. We're well off of Jeskai Charm, so no reason not to be plussing the Jace anyway, and then when you get into that loyalty range, start considering that ultimate.
Yeah, maybe you want to go ahead and do that. It will be an end step, Dig Through Time for Andrew Tenjum.
And Dig Through Time, good one to cast again out of the graveyard, but it does get a little difficult when you empty as much of it here.
Yeah, and he did hit his 3rd land. It was a copy of Lumbering Falls. Obviously could not attack with Den Protector as it was a 0-1. Dig Through Time. Now, normally we're seeing Jeskai deck. Right now, Jeskai decks go toward cards like Treasure Cruise, opting for when they're a control deck. It seems like they want this critical mass of cards. You know, a 3 is better than a 2. Now, in a deck that's more burn-oriented, like Jeskai Black, we're seeing them go over to Dig Through Time.
Yep, with the other builds of the deck, with the Painful Truce and the Treasure Cruise, they just want to draw as many cards as possible, try to interact with you on every turn. With the Jeskai Burn deck, you really just want to find the spells that actually end the game.
5th land from Tenjum. He'll go ahead and crack a Polluted Delta. And so the Jace at 6. We'll see whether he puts it up to 7 or whether he wants to double up on one of his cheap spells here.
Yeah, there's not really a lot that you'd want to cast twice here, right? There's no need for 2 Fiery Impulse, so we won't see it for there. I have a very strong suspicion that we're just going to see a plus on the Jace again.
So it'll inch closer toward that emblem. At 3 mana for Tenjum, it's going to be a copy of Jeskai Charm to put Den Protector back on top of the deck. Now remember, Andy does not have another land, so this is a big play.
Yeah, and we were talking about how it wouldn't be great to Reflector Mage the Den Protector earlier. Forcing him to redraw and commit mana when he can't morph it back up actually seems pretty solid.
Absolutely. So Ferguson is going to draw the Den Protector. We'll see if that's the recast he wants to make. He, of course, does not have a 4th land.
Mm-hmm.
And there's concern that if Andrew has more Jeskai Charms, Andrew could just keep Jeskai Charming Andy's play.
Yep. Andy's deck is not short of options for 3 mana spells. Reflector Mage is pretty strong here. Still is not going to allow him to pressure the Jace, and it's getting pretty appealing to just go ahead and ultimate that Jace and just do things like Jeskai Charm or whatever creatures Ferguson plays.
So we're back to Tenjum here. He has a Telepath Unbound on 7. And this may be the centerpiece of Tenjum's strategy now. You see there at 9, he gets an emblem with whenever Tenjum casts a spell, Andy Ferguson will have to put the top 5 cards of his library into the graveyard.
Yeah, so let's put that notion to bed.
All right, we're going a different line. Jace -3s, gives the Jeskai Charm flashback, and puts the Reflector Mage back on top. He could not recast the Seeker of the Way that turn because it had been reflected.
Mm-hmm. I'm quite curious what's in Tenjum's hand here. The fact that we're so aggressively using these Jeskai Charms to top deck creatures, it suggests that he's probably lacking a lot of what he actually needs to win the game.
Well, and I'm still surprised at the same time that he didn't try to build toward an emblem. I mean, he must not have had any blocker or removal for the Reflector Mage for that play to make sense.
The Jace itself checks the Reflector Mage, though. It can't attack Jace just by plussing the Jace.
Yeah, I guess that is a surprise then. So now he'll get to cast Seeker of the Way. That one had been reflected the previous turn. Jace will start ticking up again, going to 5.
And here's exactly why you might see Tenjum get punished if he goes for the emblem. This instant speed Bounding Krasis adds another body to the board that can pressure the Jace.
And that was play, so it'll come into play, it'll tap Seeker of the Way, and now we go back to Ferguson's turn. Krasis has an open avenue of attack at the Planeswalker. Can Tenjum defend it? We will see. He doesn't have Spell Mastery just yet. Only Dig Through Time in the Yard.
Correct, yeah. Plenty of mana, plenty of cards in hand. Odds are high that he has something. Cracking the fetch here amplifies my beliefs in this.
We'll see just what the play is now. Removal-wise, Tenjum has Crackling Doom, Fiery Impulse, and Jeskai Charm. So we're thinking perhaps a Crackling Doom here.
Yeah, and finding the red mana, maybe we're looking to Crackling Doom and follow up with an Impulse on anything that Ferguson plays.
Could have an Impulse. He also has 2 main deck copies of Dispel.
Leaving up the blue mana here.
All right, so Crackling Doom. Now, Andy, if he has another Krasis, could flash it in right now.
Yes.
No counter spells in Andy's hand. Or in his deck, rather. So we'll see if he wants to defend here. He's not going to. He'll go to 17 and lose the Krasis. He did have another Bounding Krasis in hand, so the option was there.
With the 4th land, I have to imagine that there's a Collected Company instead. Tenjum leaving up that blue mana there and fetching for that mountain suggests to me that this line is not going to work.
If Andy had a 2-drop, he did have a line where he could have flashed Bounding Krasis into play, untapped one of his lands, sacked the new Krasis, dealt 3 to Jace, played a 2-drop, and passed. And you're right, so Andy instead opted to try to go for a Collected Company post-combat, but I just don't think he had the read correct on that blue mana. Tenjum dispels, and now the board's excellent for Andrew again.
Given the fact that Tenjum left that blue and he had the option to leave up red, That strongly suggests Dispel and not Fiery Impulse. Fiery Impulse would have been a way to take care of 2 Bounding Krasis, but the Dispel is the only thing they could possibly be representing there.
Now, to be fair, Andrew, it's probably worth 1 life to Andrew to represent Dispel, whether or not he has it.
Right. Also, quite likely that Andrew has multiple copies of Collected Company in hand. He's been sitting there not doing anything for quite a while. He did keep a hand that stalled on 2 lands for a minute here.
Swing for 5 will put Ferguson down to 12. Jace Plus is up to 6. So we go back to Andy's side. And it's not like a Collected Company. You can't... Playing around Dispel is very hard because it's 1 mana. Now, it's still a big tempo play, right? It's Andy's whole turn for Andrew's 1 mana.
Right. And life totals are quite high. You can afford to get got once or twice. And we see Ferguson pass the turn.
Oh, that's,
there's a 0% chance, yeah. He's not on no action.
Tenjum will swing again. Here's the Collected Company. Does Andrew have a second Dispel? He does not, so creatures will come into play. We see Sylvan Advocate, Deathmist Raptor, Bounding Krasis, Den Protector.
What you really wanted to find here was a Reflector Mage to bounce that Mantis Rider. The Krasis is a little less good now that attackers have been declared.
Yeah, there is this spot where you don't, are you supposed to collect a company at the beginning of combat or after attackers?
Worth noting that with the Vigilance on the Mantis Rider, at least the Krasis will tap it as a blocker, so you can get that Jace off the table if you get 6 power here, and Tenjum has no way to kill it.
Looking at those 6. Looks like Deathmist Raptor and Bounding Krasis were taken. Mantis Rider is going to be tapped. But it's still attacking here.
I have to imagine with life totals this low that Ferguson's going to throw one of these creatures in front of the Seeker.
Well, we'll see if he gets the chance to. Andrew's going to go ahead and tap 3. He will Jeskai Charm the Deathmist Raptor to the top of Andy's deck. And he'll Crackling Doom him here as well. This is a very aggressive line from Tenjum.
Down to 10 off of Doom.
Off of Doom. Now it's 7 more off the creatures in play. Ferguson's going to be down to 3 here.
Yep. The Jace is lethal. There's a Jeskai Charm.
Yeah, Andy's going to have to kill it this turn. He could have Dromoka's Command to stop the Jeskai Charm, but he can't stop the Jeskai Charm, Mantis Rider, and Seeker. All 3 would be lethal, and game 1 does go over to Andrew Tenjum.
Too much happening there for Ferguson to overcome. That stalling on lands early was kind of the story of that game.
Yeah, it really just put him behind on tempo. So game 1 for our Jeskai Black player, Andrew Tenjum, as we move over to the sideboard, looking first at Andy Ferguson playing Bant Company. He's got some Arishan Clerics, Disdainful Strokes, Dispels, 2 Frostwalker. That one's a pretty interesting one here.
Yeah.
A Harbinger of Tides, a Silk Wrap, and a Valor Stance. What do we like in the matchup?
Love Dispel. It's just insanely good in this matchup. The rate is quite good. Tenjum's going to be trying to Dispel your Collected Company and is going to be casting a lot of 3 mana instants here, so you get a great rate trading on that. Disdainful Stroke really does not have the number of targets that you really want for that. Mostly we're looking at Dispel. Silk Wrap is good because your opponent is a J-Stack and they have Mantis Rider. Probably not Valorous Stance. I think it's a little too inefficient for what you're trying to do. Then on Tenjum's side, the Disdainful Strokes actually matter a little bit more. You're tagging Collected Company, and Ferguson does have 2 Dromoka's commands, or sorry, Orgitized commands that you can hit with it. It starts to get a little appealing. It's not great. I would be surprised to see both copies come in. You might get 1.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting, right? Negate, there are some high-impact spells that you really could use a counterspell for here, but there aren't, he's a company deck, which means he's mostly creatures.
And that's actually a really good point. Going a little bit further down the list, the Negates do the same things, but they also counter the Dromoka's commands. Even still, 2 might be a bit much. Definitely bring in 1 just to be able to counter the spells when it comes up. The Self-Inflicted Wounds are solid. Plenty of green and white creatures out of Ferguson's deck, and this is a burn deck after all.
Yeah, I do like the idea of killing creatures with penalty. Killing them, they take 2. Let's do that. Self-Inflicted Wound may be the best card in Andrew Tenjum's sideboard here.
I don't think this is a Soulfire Grandmaster matchup. There's just too many 2/3s and 3/3s in Ferguson's deck for that to be a player.
All right, they're getting ready for game 2. Andy Ferguson and Andrew Tenjum. We're going to talk about Star City Games Game Night. This is it now in its 2nd year. This is the fun, friendly event held at stores near you. Any night can be a Star City Games Game Night, giving away exclusive pins and promos. Coming up in February, the coming month, is going to be the Magus of the Moo. That's everyone's favorite Minotaur. I don't particularly like it because I like non-basic lands, but I could appreciate the art at the very least. In March, we're going to have our next one is the Grim Llamamancer, which is excellent.
Yes.
He's a 3/1 though, so he's an elemental token. I know.
Well,
Perhaps Chandra could make him.
That's the thing. The actual Grim Llamamancer is only a human, so it only has 1 power. But the Llamamancer is a llama. They're vicious.
They're vicious. Now this guy has trample though, so maybe he can't be a Chandra. Chandra can't make this one.
No, that's too bad for Chandra.
This is just for our Coom Stonewakers.
Chandra has never been known for her relationship with animals.
I could see that. Most animals, the number of animals that like fire is varies. I don't know if they exist.
Most of the animals that like fire are Pokemon.
Okay. But not grass Pokemon.
Right. When
or
you
ice Pokemon. I screwed that one up when I was younger. I remember bringing ice Pokemon to a fire gym and being like, oh yeah, it should work.
If they melt the ice, then you just douse them with your water,
if
right?
If I throw ice on a fire, it'll probably put out the fire, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't work that way.
At least dampen it.
It's really bad. You don't bring your Articuno to the fire gym. It's bad.
But Dugong is strong because it's also a water type.
Because he's also a water type. Sylvan Advocates, the turn 2 play for Andy Ferguson. He's down a game here. We'll see if he can get off 2 lands. Last time, that was really the difficult part for him. It'll match up against Andrew Tenjum's 2-drop, which is going to be Jace, Friend's Prodigy. And Reflector Mage continues to be good. He has actually a great option here. He can Reflector Mage the Jace, or he can Dromoka's Command it down.
Yeah, I like the permanent fix, though. Reflector Mage does use all your mana, puts another body on the table, and then if Tenjum's follow-up is a Jace, you get to Dromoka's Command that, and when the Jace comes back next turn...
Well, it can come back next turn, right?
I meant to say Mantis Rider on turn 3, and when the Jace comes by the turn after that, it no longer really matters.
Yeah, so he's going to go with the Reflector Mage and swing in for 2. I think he comes to the same conclusion there. If your opponent plays any 2-drop, do you just Reflector Mage it on turn 3? It feels like it.
You think about it, and then the more you think about it, the more you realize that Reflector Mage is just insanely good in this spot.
Tenjum, and you see it now. Tenjum down 2 creatures to 0.
Two 2/3 creatures. Tenjum not yet being a Spellmaster. Can't deal with that. Sideboard, he has some roasts. Those are sorceries. Passing the turn suggests that they are not there.
Swing for 4 will put Tenjum down to 14. See a lot of options. No 4th land for Ferguson. And he actually had choices. He could have played Den Protector, Death Mist Raptor. It looks like he's going to leave up Dromoka's Command mana instead.
Yep, and he actually is off double green for the Raptor, which is unfortunate. 3 lands and being off of one of your 3-mana spells.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it face down. I don't think no one's really interested in that.
Right. You know that Tenjum has a Jace. There's no way that he's just not going to do anything. He didn't kill your creatures. You know, you can at least fight over a burn spell with the command. It can prevent damage from a burn spell, or you just kill a creature.
So here's a big opening for Ferguson. Andrew Tenjum taps out for Jace Friend's Prodigy and for Seeker of the Way. So Ferguson, first of all, he gets to take one of them out. He gets to end-step Dromoka's Command down one of the creatures. Now, I think the added bonus is that if Ferguson draws a land this turn, he will have a collected company that he knows will resolve here.
Yes. Great opening. Does he find the land?
And he's aggressive. Look at that. He chose to get rid of Seeker of the Way instead of Jace. And then the draw Wooded Foothills for the turn. I mean, you fire off Coco while you can, I think.
Absolutely. And on this board, I do like fighting the Seeker more than the Jace. The Seeker is actually quite good in any racing situation. You know, the lifelink and the prowess allows it to actually battle reasonably here. The Jace takes some support. We have not even seen a single spell out of Andrew yet.
Yeah, 1 card in the graveyard. Jace is a ways off from doing anything. You know, your worry would be that Jace would start, you know, you do Fiery Impulse, Flashback, Fiery Impulse. There's things like that.
Mm-hmm.
4th land, and he's actually just going to play Death Mist Raptor with a blue mana up.
All right, you know, puts another body on the board. He has a Dispel in his hand.
Yeah, it's not too shabby. He has Tenjum down to 9.
Yeah, far enough ahead where just getting this creature in play and fighting over a removal spell might just be good enough. And he just has the option to main phase the Collected Company next turn. If Tenjum does something like removal spell, you dispel it, and then he dispels back. Tenjum's tapped out again.
Well, Andrew Tenjum's going to look for some answers. One thing about Jeskai Charm, it can be a very powerful card, but it does not play well from behind.
No.
That's a lot of Andrew's deck. It did a great job of applying pressure, but unlike traditional Jeskai Black, which has more removal and more recursion for it, this is a tougher spot for Andrew here.
Yeah, you're going to struggle on the draw when you have Jeskai Charm in your deck. It's just not a card that's going to play well from behind. As I mentioned before, the cards that you want to put on top of your opponent's deck are the cards they're not happy to draw. If there's a creature that's killing you this turn, that creature is still going to be killing you next turn when they cast it again.
Yeah. The discard is Dig Through Time. No time for that one, not when you're at 9 life facing down 7 on board. Or 9 on board even, I suppose. 8? 8. He's 1 short. So he'll go to 8. He'll make it a lethal.
Yep. Tenjum's up to something, though.
Yeah, check for his sideboard. Does he have something like a Crux of Fate, a Sweeper? Nothing like that. If he's boarded in the Soulfire Grandmasters, he might be able to kill creatures while gaining life here.
Yeah, Soulfire Grandmaster into Roast would be great here. Looks a lot like Crackling Doom leaving up counter magic.
Well, Andy will just dispel the Crackling Doom. If Tenjum does not have a counterspell, he is dead on the board.
He needs a counterspell or removal spell. He has nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and even if he did have a negate, I don't even know that he wants to play it here to show that he has that out of the board.
Right. You're kind of pretty close to dead. Yeah.
So 1 game apiece, Ferguson and Tenjum. This one is 4 top 8. As we go back to the board. Reflector Mage bouncing Jace on turn 3 is really where it all began that game.
Yeah, that was a big tempo swing.
Yeah, and one that Tenjum never came back from. I mentioned it before, and I think when Ferguson has those kind of starts, and Sylvan Advocate into a Reflector Mage, it's going to be hard for Tenjum to get onto the board with this deck.
Especially with Fiery Impulse as your 4 of de facto early removal spell. If your opponent's just full up on 2/3s, you have to do some work to actually kill them with that spell.
So Andrew Tenjum, currently 7th place in our Season 1 standings. Part of Team Lotus. This is the first team that's really come as a group to test together and play for our events. From Madison, Wisconsin, he has 8 open top 8s with 1 win, including an invitational top 8. One of your teammates, actually, for the more recent Pro Tour, right?
Yep. He was kind of boring when it came to deck selection there. He played Obzon at the Pro Tour, but spicing it up a little bit this week, and I like to see that a lot better. Very disciplined guy. Plays a deck, sticks with it, figures out the best build, so I'm sure that he's been playing a lot with this deck.
So if you spend time with him testing, then I have to know, is self-proclaimed #1 Taylor Swift fan in the world. How do we feel about that claim?
In Vancouver, he purchased tickets to see Taylor Swift the day after playing day 1 of the Pro Tour.
All right. So there's some claim to it.
This is a loosely verifiable fact. This does not slate him in as the #1 fan in the world, but it's puts him ahead of most of the people that would claim this title.
All right. Well, anyway, he is playing 4 top 8 this round. He needs 1 more win. It did not get game 2, but he'll be on the play for game 3. It's the Magic Pro Tour and Taylor Swift in the same city.
Actually, it was after day 2, I remember, because we had to test for Stefan Barrios made the top 8, so we wanted to test the matchup for him, and Tenjum had already purchased a ticket for Taylor Swift, so he did not do any playtesting with us.
Wow, what a teammate.
Yeah. Pretty much scum.
So we'll have Tenjum back here on the play for game 3. Being on the play, I think, gives him some insurance against these early Reflector Mage starts, the kind that can beat him up.
Yep. Turn 3 Reflector Mage on Jace is not as good. There's also just a chance that you have gone Jason to Mantis Rider before that even happens.
Players will trade lands to start out for Tenjum. Evolving Wilds will get cracked into a island. Turn 2 Jason waiting for Andy Ferguson. Back over to Tenjum. We'll see if he does have that turn 2 Jace. Could also still be Seeker of the Way, plays both. For him, it will be the Planeswalker.
Either of them are great openings for this deck.
I mean, one thing we've been seeing this matchup is it just feels like you need a early drop. Now, Andy had to choose between Silk Wrap and Jace. He opted to go for Silk Wrap there.
Yeah, and part of the thing is, Tenjum is more equipped to deal with Jace than Ferguson is. So you want to kill his Jace because there's a chance that yours doesn't survive, and you know you're giving him at least one draw by passing the turn with the Jace in play.
And this is a one of Silk Wrap out of the sideboard for Ferguson. We talked about how little removal he has.
Just like he drew it up. No follow-up creature.
I mean, his other removal spells are all Dromoka's commands. So third land from Tenjum. No play, no Mantis Rider. He'll pass back. We go over to Andy. He doesn't have to worry about Crackling Doom here. That island will make that impossible.
Yep. Looks like Andy just passed back, representing a Bounding Crassus.
You know, I like that he actually is still, you're right, he is still representing a creature.
Yeah. He's never genuinely passing the turn. I don't trust him for 1 second.
You know, my first thought on that is, boy, I know that you're probably playing it into a removal, but you should play your creature anyway. You can't afford to lose your mana, but yeah, I don't know. This is where Flash becomes great.
Yeah, it's funny how that mechanic is good.
I wonder if do we upkeep tap him? Reminiscent of, you know, go back to Modern.
Yeah. Exarch your land.
Yeah.
Untap, collect a company, practically Splinter Twin. You get more copies.
Land go from Ferguson. He's going to, if he taps that island, there's no counterspell from Tenjum. The fetch land he played was Wooded Foothills.
Yep, red and green do not like blue. Allied lands.
Crassus will swing in. Tenjum down to 16. Yeah, actually, Bounding Crassus, unlike those Exarchs, can only tap creatures.
Okay, that makes sense.
I suppose. Wow, new design. We can't mana screw people with our creatures.
Well, the thing about Deceiver Exarch and Pestermite is being a fairy and in Exarch, whatever that is. I assume it's a magical creature is what I'm getting at. A fish lizard, it makes sense that it could interact with the creature. It doesn't really make sense that it could do magical things to tap a land.
Well, a fish lizard could interact with your island.
That's true. It should be able to tap a creature or an island.
Yeah, which is what he'd want to do here.
Yeah. I'd feel a little cheated if I was Andy right now.
Well, he'll swing in for 3. That part he won't feel cheated on. Tenjum's at 15. Plays that fourth land, as we've always said. Oh, no plays on turn 4. That's probably what's going on here.
Yeah. He's got to be out of gas. He's only got like 6 cards in hand.
In his all creatures deck, 6 cards in hand, 4 lands. Probably just didn't have a play.
Yeah, building up to like a Dragonlord Dromoka.
I like that card. That card would be good against Jeskai Black, too.
Not good against this card.
Self-inflicted wound is the play from Andrew Tenjum. And I think we might see a Collected Company in response.
Yeah, find something worse to sacrifice.
Would love to hit maybe a Death Mist Raptor. Could sacrifice one of those.
Yep, that's certainly fine. Or if you just kind of whiff on your Collected Company and have to put in a face-up Den Protector.
It's fine, too. The question for me is going to be whether or not this Collected Company will resolve.
Yes, there is no certainty in that matter.
Here we go, Collected Company. The answer is no. It will be dispelled. Crassus will be wounded.
Unsurprisingly, Tenjum did not have to think about that one.
No, that's what it's there for. So Ferguson will drop to 16 life totals. Closing up. Tenjum building himself a healthy graveyard down the road for delve spells, perhaps for future Jaces.
Even board, fairly even life totals.
If this turns into a late game, who do we think gets it though?
So once again, considering the Jeskai charms, I like the other deck in the late game.
Yeah.
Collected Company is a really good way to build value and build value on the board. Tenjum does have access to dig through time to put more cards in his hand, but a lot of the cards that he's digging to don't necessarily impact the board in a big way, and Death Mist Raptor and Den Protector really do.
Yeah, a lot of the late game strategies we see out of Jeskai Black involve things like Soulfire Grandmaster, and playing more Dig Through Times or Treasure Cruises. On Ferguson's side, cards like Ojutai's Command, Den Protector, and Death Mist Raptor do present a powerful late game.
Absolutely.
You see plays from Ferguson. He'll tap out for a Death Mist Raptor and a Jace.
A Jace with Collected Company in graveyard, so these are both pretty meaty threats.
Yeah, I believe he can flash back that Collected Company very shortly. So it'll be on Tenjum to answer these creatures.
He has the mana. Does he have the tools?
That's going to be the question. If Andy can resolve a Collected Company, that's where things will start getting out of control for Tenjum.
Absolutely. There's no huge way for Tenjum to catch up on board. He just has to find enough spells and the right kind of spells to clear everything that Andy does.
Well, he does have his own cards like Goblin Dark Dwellers. And see, Jeskai Charm will put Jace on top of the deck. Here's Evolving Wilds. Here's a Jace of Andrew's own.
Not bad.
That could do work. So Ferguson is forced to draw Jace. Looks like he has another Collected Company in hand, though. Tenjum is tapped out.
Yeah, it looks like Collected Company, land, Jace. The land puts him at 6, so he can do both of those things. This might be a very good turn for Ferguson.
Yeah, I mean, so that was an interesting situation. He could have Upkeep Collected Companied if he didn't want to draw the Jace here.
Yeah, it also guarantees the hit of at least the Jace.
Looks like that'll be no problem. The first 4 cards, all creatures, he has 2 options between Gen Protector, Reflector Mage, and Sylvan Advocate. He'll go away from the Den Protectors. He'll take the Reflector Mage and Advocate. 5 lands in play.
I think I like redrawing this Jace because this one, it gets him 2 creatures that can beat down, and he has a Jace on top of it.
Yeah, plays land 6 for Sylvan Advocate. And we'll see if he wants to commit the Jace as well. Is everybody in, or is he going to hold back?
I mean, you're already so committed, right?
Yep, last card in hand is Jace. So Andy Ferguson, empty-handed, but look at the board he has. 4/5 Advocate, 2/3 Reflector Mage, 3/3 Death Mist. It's 9 power on the board. He has Tenjum down to 11.
Very good position for Ferguson.
This Collected Company deck's just so dangerous. You see land number 7 for Tenjum.
This looks a lot like the build-up to a dig through time.
Yeah, he'll want to fetch first if he's going to dig through time because he has some silver bullets in his graveyard that he wants to keep there in case maybe he hits a Goblin Dark Dwellers.
Mm-hmm. Get the land out of your deck, too. When you're seeing that many cards, small edges like that do matter.
Isn't the danger, though, that even if Andrew Tenjum stabilizes here, Jace is just going to make Flashback Collected Company?
That is absolutely a danger.
It's going to be Goblin Dark Dwellers putting Jace on top of Andy's deck.
Yep, got to do something about that Jace.
And here's another Jace of his own, but note, that was Reflector Mage, so Andrew cannot play it. So Tenjum at 10, starting to stabilize, or at least trying to.
Mm-hmm. The Dark Dwellers at least gets him on the board in a relevant way. Deals with the Jace for a turn.
So back to Ferguson, seeing how he wants to attack. For sure, the Advocate and Death Mist are coming in. The question was whether the Reflector Mage would. It did not.
Yep.
So Death Mist trades with Dark Dwellers. Advocate deals 4. Tenjum goes to 6 and gets a Jace.
Another great turn for Ferguson here. He's so far ahead with the fact that the Advocate is larger than the Dark Dwellers, forces a trade with the Death Mist Raptor, and next turn the Reflector Mage Sunline to attack for 2.
Well, and that just shows such a great matchup. So Dark Dwellers, you know, it's a card advantage card at its heart. And why I think it's been so impressive is that 4/4 is a sizable body on top of your card advantage. But when your opponent has a 4/5, that takes a lot of the punch out of the Goblin Dark Dwellers.
Yeah. When the 4/4 body starts to look like it just doesn't matter, you're in trouble.
Jermoka's command from Ferguson will be too much, so that will take game 3 for him, and in back-to-back weekends, it looks like Andy Ferguson will be making the top 8 with Collected Company.
Really impressive stuff. I like this deck that he has presented this week quite a lot.
Yeah, so Bant Company switched it up, decided that Reflector Mage might just be too good to not play here, and it shows it in the match against Andrew Tenjum. So for Tenjum, it's a drop to 11 and 3. Middle of the standings for him, it'll be... I think with a win, he has a shot at top 8, but it's going to be a sweat for Andrew regardless.